Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. I hope everybody's well. I'm feeling a bit under the weather today. That just happens at times. Um, Jesus Christ, I'm not feeling good. Oh man, it'll pass. It'll pass. I know what it is. It's nothing serious. It's just the pains of being a woman. Let's just leave it at that. If you if you're female, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And men, if you live with a woman, you know what I'm talking about. We'll just leave it like that. It's the pains of being female. It'll pass. But I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's all right. I actually took a day off today from work. That's how bad I'm feeling. I don't usually take off time from work unless it's like a scheduled like break. The only vacation I take from work is usually around Christmas time because it's an easy 2 weeks off because of the holidays pretty much being back to back to back almost. So yeah, this is kind of like rare for me. It's like if I can't push past it, it's kind of serious, but it'll pass. But I decided to do this video. What I hope will be quick, because when I was just going through Twitter on my phone and I'm like, I'm not seeing this. This is not happening. But apparently it is. Daniel Kibblesmith, it says here he's a TV writer. He's a writer for TV comic books and all that other stuff. I think he did something a while back called Santa's Husband or whatever it was. Um, he's going to be writing Blade. Now, here's why I take serious issue with this. If you're newer to the channel, you may not necessarily know the history behind Kibblesmith and Marvel Comics. If you've been on the channel for a while, and especially if you've been following comics and Comicsgate and the Culture War, you're going to remember Danny Kibblesmith. And you might be laughing and or crying at this moment. But last year, Daniel Kibblesmith got literally laughed off the internet. He got laughed off the internet because I believe it was April of last year. It was right when the pandemic really hit the hardest and people thought the comics industry was going to collapse right there. And I was one of those too. I wasn't expecting it to still be around over a year later. Although I do think it's still on its deathbed, I really did think that comics were effectively dead at that point because the comics weren't being shipped. Diamond and other distribution centers had shut down. It truly looked like imminent death for the comic book industry at that particular time, just April of last year, because of just how quickly and just how harsh the initial lockdowns were at that time. In New York City, we locked down effectively in March, right? So April was about a month afterwards. So everything was just really, it took us for a loop, right? But here's the thing. At that time, Daniel Kibblesmith was working on a comic called The New Warriors. It was being referred to by fans and critics as the New Warriors because it was that classic comic trope of bringing back an old team that had been popular at one time, the original New Warriors, and having them mentor a new generation. Nothing out of hand or uncommon for comics in that regard. But Kibblesmith, the New Warriors team, which he helped create, were supposed to be characters who sort of had ironic names, right? Things like B Negative, who was supposed to be the vampire. Things like Screen Time, right? It's supposed to be a nod to being on the internet too much. The character named Trailblazer, right? Who was this like overweight Native American Dora the Explorer looking type character. And in particular, two characters who were supposed to be brother and sister, but also non binary, right? I don't know how that works. But non binary siblings, Safe Space and Snowflake. That was literally supposed to be their names. Snowflake and Safe Space. And on top of that, the way the two characters were drawn, like if let me try to look up the original cover. The original cover. 1 second. I gotta pause this. One minute. Right. So it was this. It was this. Right. The tall looking dude in the green and the gray was supposed to be screen time. Trailblazer is the heavyset girl in the magenta jacket. You have B negative behind her, and then you see the dude in pink and the girl in blue, right? With that very, let's say, intimate embrace. In particular, how the girls, how their hands are like lowered toward the groin area. In particular, his groin area, right? It looks like a more intimate embrace between lovers. Those were supposed to be the siblings. Those were supposed to be the non-binary siblings of Snowflake and Safe Space, right? Snowflake is supposed to be the blue one. Safe Space is supposed to be the pink one, right? The idea was that they were going to in uh, invert the colors, right? Because pink is generally associated these days with women, blue with men, except that if you know your color theory history or just the general history of fashion, back in like the 18 and 1900s, pink was considered a color for baby boys because pink just as a color is the blend of red and white, and red's always represented things like blood and violence, love and sex and stuff like that, so it was considered masculine, whereas blue represented like marriage and purity and all that, and innocence, like true blue femininity, right? Or how many wedding dresses back in the day actually used to be blue, right? So they were symbols of femininity. So to quote Fourth Snake, right? Subverting the subversion is playing it straight. If you're subverting the subversion, you are now playing it straight. But I don't think Kibblesmith or whomever came up with this uber bright idea of having the incest twins realized that they were just subverting a subversion, right? But this is what he was a part of, right? Now, to my knowledge, this comic ultimately did not get released, or at least I haven't seen it. And any news I've heard about it, I haven't heard of any sort of uh, release. So maybe for once, Marvel realized just how dumb this was and actually listened to the fans and didn't release it because that idea got laughed off the internet and then some. It's like it's one of those things that's even worse than Vita Ayala's Children of the Atom comic, which is literally about a bunch of non-mutant human cosplayers cosplaying as the X-Men and trying to be gender inversions. Like uh, there's one blonde chick cosplaying Cyclops, and she calls herself Cyclops Lass. I'm like, you do realize he's called Cyclops because the visor makes it look like he has one eye, and if you take away the visor, you take away his glasses, he effectively can't see because he has to keep his eyes closed so the eye beams don't shoot. Do you know anything about the history of the character? But anyway, right? This thing was actually worse than Children of the Atom, which sadly did and ended up being released. But now, Daniel Kibblesmith, the guy or at least one of the major minds behind the New Warriors, and the same person who said in an interview in a video last year when that comic was supposed to come out, who said that he found characters like Night Thrasher scary because of their design. They're big, they're muscular, right? They wear red and they wear black and they're intimidating. Y'all are gonna put the same man who said Night Thrasher scared him as a child, and you're gonna have him write Blade. Blade! The violent, aggressive, alpha black male vampire character, right? The dude who was played by Wesley Snipes, an actual person with a history of martial arts, right? You want Daniel Kibblesmith to write Blade. You're allowing him to write Blade. The same man who tweeted, I think it was some point last year, but he made a tweet about, because there was some story on the internet about some police officer who reacted badly to some call he got and he overreacted or something, right? It was some weird thing and the cop totally overreacted. But Kibblesmith, because he disagreed with the cop's actions and how they dealt with the situation, talked about how he wished he could go into a police station into the police station where the officer worked and beat up that cop and other cops with a baseball bat. Well, you know what, kids? You know what? Louis the baseball bat is not happy about that. Louis did not forget. Louis did not forget, and neither did I. You were the same fool talking about how you wanted to take my poor Louis, just a nice innocent baseball bat, and you wanted to use Louis to hurt people just because you disagreed with how one officer behaved, right? So Louis, my poor dear Louis, Louis did not forget that, and I did not forget it either, Mr. Kibblesmith. Now, I want to be clear. I don't necessarily think that you have to be just like the character you're writing. You don't have to be a martial artist to write a martial artist. You don't have to be or have a military history to write a military character like Captain America or Captain Marvel or whatever. You don't have to have had that experience. It might help if you have, because you know what it's like, but you don't have to have that background, right? You most nearly everybody is not going to have the background of a superhero character because vampires aren't real. Right? Vampires aren't real, and swordsmanship is not a regular pastime anymore. So I want to be clear. You don't have to be like the character to write the character. I don't want to in any way come across as if Kibblesmith is unqualified to write Blade because he's not like Blade. You don't have to be black, or you don't have to be black, for example, to write Blade. Some of Blade's best writers have been white people, right? Though I do find it interesting that they put a white man on Blade in this case because Marvel, for many years now, has been very much pairing like with like, right? For example, they put Gabby Rivera, who's a lesbian writer and queer Latinx writer, on the America Chavez book several years ago because the character of America Chavez was lesbian. She used to be bi, now they made her full blown lesbian, right? And then, of course, there was when they more or less mind raped Bobby Drake to make him gay, they put Cena Grace in out gay writer on the character. So they've been doing this like with like thing for a while. They've been doing it forever with Captain Marvel, right? Nearly every writer who's been on that book since it was taken over by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Miss Marvel became Captain Marvel, nearly every writer on that comic has been female. So Marvel's been doing this for a while, pairing like with like and getting, let's say, poor results, poor sales, poor storytelling, poor art. So I want to be clear. The issue here is not that Kibblesmith is white and that Marvel's and that rather Blade is not. That's not the problem at all. You don't have to be like the character to write the character. The problem is that Daniel Kibblesmith is an awful writer. And Daniel Kibblesmith, right, is the same person who said that a character like Night Thrasher was scary to him. So if Night Thrasher scares you, how the hell does Blade not? Blade is meant to be scary, right? He's a horror character. Granted, he's very action oriented, but still, he carries a sword. He's a vampire. He's big. He's strong. He's alpha. He's aggressive. He's meant to be terrifying, right? He's meant to be intimidating and scary. So how in the hell are you going, Marvel? How in the hell are you going to allow a man who admitted that he was scared of Night Thrasher. Night Thrasher. Write a character like Blade. How? How? Blade is like Night Thrasher times 1,000. So how in the world do you allow him to write this character? How the hell do you assign him to this? I can only imagine how he's going to ruin the character Blade. I have absolutely no reason to believe he's going to write a good Blade story or even keep Blade in character. Because for some reason, over the past several years, Marvel has been on this campaign to make black male heroes less alpha, less masculine. You can look at the way they've depicted Blade in previous comics. You can look at the way they've depicted Bishop in previous comics, and even other um, black male characters. The only one they seem to show any respect toward recently is probably T'Challa, and that's because of the success of the MCU and the Black Panther film a few years ago. But outside of that, no well-known black hero in Marvel Comics recently has been getting a fair shake in the comics. They're usually depicted as just very the whole point of those characters is that they are very hyper masculine, right? Very alpha, very macho, very aggressive. And they haven't been depicted that way in a while, right? And it's it's like taking Wolverine's bad attitude from him. Wolverine is not Wolverine if he's a happy, well balanced individual. Oh, who isn't looking for a girl, a drink, or a fight, right? And that's what they've been doing to these characters. They've been taking that macho aggressive element from them. They've been defanging them. They've been in many ways, in a symbolic sense, castrating them. And well, my big long bat is not happy about that, right? I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy that a man who admitted that a macho masculine black character scared him is gonna write a macho masculine black character. Just as I am tired, I know I tend to talk about the female characters more and how they get desexed and defanged, but believe me, I am very aware and very horrified, to be honest with you, um, at how the male characters, in particular ones again like Blade, right? How the male characters who are defined by that sort of macho hyper aggressiveness or hyper masculinity keep getting uh, symbolically castrated. That's not appealing to me, right? I I like Wolverine as Wolverine, right? His bad attitude, his grumpiness, his anger is what makes him appealing. And I would imagine that people who like Bishop or people who like Blade, like them for who they are. And part of who they are is that they're these, mean, grumpy, aggressive types, right? Him, Cable, right? Right. Those type of, very, very 1990s anti-hero type characters. A lot of these characters were not made in the 90s. I want to be clear. A lot of them were not made in the 90s, with the exception of perhaps Cable, because he's a Rob Liefeld creation. But a lot of them sort of like came of age with their biggest period of popularity was in the 80s and 90s when that type of edgy aggressive anti-hero was very popular, right? Even the Blade film came out in, like, what was it, 97 or 98. So a lot of these characters, even though they were not made in the 1990s, sort of became associated with the 1990s and the type of male action hero that was popular back then. And as a fan of the 1990s, yeah, I don't want those characters to lose what makes them, what defines them, what makes them who they are. I don't want them, in this case of Blade, to be literally or figuratively defanged. I don't want Wolverine to be declawed, literally or 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 figuratively. Same way that I don't want female characters who've always had a healthy dose of sex appeal, like Miss Marvel, right, to have that taken from them, right? I'm all for expanding a character story or taking them in a new direction, and that's fine. But there's a difference between telling different stories with a character and then changing the impetus of who that character is, changing the core element of who they are. It's like, just like Peter Parker is not at heart a very mean person, right? Blade is at heart a very mean person, right? I don't want Spider Man's personality on Blade, and I don't want Blade's personality on Spider Man. And most importantly, I don't want Daniel Kibblesmith, Mr. Internet tough guy extraordinaire, Mr. I want to take a baseball bat and beat somebody with it, writing a comic about a sword wielding black vampire, right, who does cool, awesome stuff that people find appealing, right? So, Mr. Kibblesmith, me and my bat here, Louie, would humbly ask you to please not write this. If you truly care about the depiction of black male characters, Mr. Kibblesmith, step aside. Step aside and let someone else. I don't care what their race is. I don't care what their gender is. I just care that they understand Blade. And given your history, I have no reason to believe that you understand one word or one thing about Blade. So, if you care at all, Mr. Kibblesmith, please step aside and let someone else who's more qualified, right, write Blade, because you ain't it, Chief. You're not it, Mr. Internet tough guy. But again, if you ever want to come over to Queens, you want to go over to Shea Stadium or something, or rather Met Stadium now, it's always going to be Shea to me. But you ever want to, hop on the 7 and take it down to Main Street in Flushing and go play some baseball, me and Louie are always up to play. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are. Bye.